Episode 2, Married Man Sex Life Primer. Welcome, guys, to the channel. Post 10,000. It's going to be a lot of fun. What are we talking about today? Well, the male action plan, alpha, beta, all that good stuff. There we go. All right. Welcome to the channel, guys. I don't know how many of you guys are new. Like I said, if you like what you see so far, hit like, subscribe. You know the spiel. Now that we got that stuff out of the way, we are talking over the Married Man Sex Life Primer. It's a great book written by Athol Kay. Good man, tragic story. If you haven't heard it before, he's essentially the first guy who applied what we talk about in the Red Pill to people in relationships and marriages. He had a place called the Married Man Sex Life Primer Forums, a precursor to what you would find online now on Reddit as the Married Red Pill. And then he made the awful mistake of giving his wife the reins of it. She started running the thing. She invited a bunch of other girls in there. Eventually, it turned into a big validation party where girls were just collecting orbiters. Meanwhile, it's these guys having horrible marriages. They ended up leaving en masse. The place ended up going under. Athol, if I remember correctly, got a heart attack. Bankruptcy, horrible things, all because he's let his wife in charge of fixing marriages. Anyways, so we're getting back to the book here. Let me pull it up. He talks about the time before writing. I refer to Cave Chad, Cave Stacy, kind of a goofy, kind of playful way to talk about going through the sexual marketplace when it comes to like our genetic history, how we acted before Paleolithic times, Neolithic times, agricultural revolution, and industrial revolution. He refers to it as the time before writing. He ends off on the quote, "Most importantly, the biological wiring for determining what is sexy has unchanged from 10,000 years ago. We are still evaluating potential sex partners now through much the same eyes as our tribal ancestors did on the ancient savannah. But we're highly social creatures as well, and we're trying to court one another in the information age. So in a sense, we are all still cavemen. We're just dressed in jeans and have cell phones." So this part deals with the disconnect between what women find attractive and what women should find attractive in the information age. Things that basically guide you towards what is useful for you today. And this is where you're going to find three different camps of people. Two of them are wrong. First camp is the adapters. They're the ones that see the groundwork, and obviously the red-pilled guys who are actually red-pilled, not just aware and not just marketers. Actual red-pilled guys kind of see the writing on the wall, and they adjust their lives accordingly. The second group are like the trad guys, the traditional types, and those are the ones that they don't like change. They don't want to adapt to change. They're not able to adapt to change. So what do? They just cry and scream and want for things to go back to the way they were. Adaptation doesn't work that way. The dinosaurs wanted a world without a meteor, but you see how that ended up. And then the third group are ones that don't know how, so they just check out. Things are too hard. Juice isn't worth the squeeze. I mean, obviously, in the history of mankind, it's never been a bad idea to get into a relationship. We're kind of hardwired for it. Cavemen always liked having cave chicks around. They like knocking up cave chicks, and they like spending time with cave families because the ones that didn't died off. So to leave all that behind and say is just kind of an admission that you don't know what to do. So we start off with the alpha and beta balance in the time before writing. So back in the time before writing, it was easy to understand what type of man a woman would be drawn to sexually. They were attracted to bigger men, stronger men, faster, and more powerful men. Women were especially attracted to men willing to fight and defend them from outsiders or natural predators. A man with a long pointed stick that was good at killing other men or tigers was vastly superior for a woman than a man who specialized on getting maimed in combat. The warrior caste has always had its appeal to women. So the traits that make a man a good warrior are also ones that make him a good hunter. So for the agricultural revolution, we were still very bloodthirsty, a lot of wars. Basically the same things that made people attractive then were making people attractive now. It worked out well throughout history. Now, In the rough and tumble world of the time before writing, the difference between the haves and have-nots were not simply degrees of wealth, but differences in survival instincts, in minimal comfort, and a life of extreme poverty and famine. So a more socially prominent male partner was a much better mate than a less prominent one, and women's attraction to men of high social status is called hypergamy and has been well documented by sociologists since the 1940s. In short, given a choice between marriage to the lord of the manor or his butler, the lord gets the clear advantage. Same thing for tribes too, whoever's running the tribe. So status and physical prowess have always been attraction cues. But, and this, to quote him here, also for the overwhelming majority of human history, men clearly dominated women socially. That domination came through the physical strength of men being clearly greater than that of women, and the use of such force is now agreed on being quite wrong. It did result in social domination back in the time before writing. It's the social domination that women have a positive sexual response to in particular. A male that is socially dominant over men as well as women is especially attractive to women. Men, on the other hand, don't respond to socially dominant women with the feelings of attraction. And that's, again, everybody kind of sees this, but they don't articulate it well. When you see people talk about that alpha female, what they're doing is they're just throwing a dick on a chick, and they're thinking, yeah, this should work just as well, but it doesn't work that way. Men were never in need of protection from women, and so women were never selected for those traits. Tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, there was never a cave Karen out there protecting men. She would have actually hated it. Even if she was super strong, she would have still wanted a stronger man to protect her. So it really falls flat, and people can talk about it till they're blue in the face, but it really does not work. And the problem comes with guys trying to convince themselves it works. Not because they actually think it works, but because they think that'll get them laid. And that supplication, even though a girl in her mind knows that I'm strong and independent, I can run HR in an office better than any man can, and maybe they can. But that lizard brain part of her cave Becky self will never be attracted to those kind of submissive qualities. So it's really just talk, it's self-sabotaging, and it belays a lack of adaptation to the sexual marketplace in the current times. So I make the case that the information age is sexual diabetes. I've talked about this a bunch. I use sexual diabetes in particular, like I'll tell you a story. Back when we were cave people, we found sugarcane. And we chewed on the root. It gave us carbohydrates. We're like, oh, this is awesome. So we chewed on sugarcane all day to get us some simple carbs. Gave us enough energy to go hunt some bison. Take it back to our cave families. Made a bunch of cave babies with all the extra meat we were eating. People that didn't like chewing on sugar bark or sugarcane ended up dying off because they didn't have enough energy. They just laid about and wasted away. Our guys walked up, kicked sand in their faces, called it a day. So over eons, people that were attracted to simple carbs tend to have more energy to hunt, ate enough protein, survived. Great. Now we're at an age, though, where we've managed to take sugarcane and what used to be a 45-minute example of chewing it to get a little bit of carbs, we've refined it to the point that it's just liquid. Liquid sugar, we can pound it back, tens of thousand calories in a day, not a big deal. But our bodies weren't wired for that. No different than like a fish. You take a freshwater fish that's able to filter salt through its kidneys, you put it in salt water, salt basically kills it. So what we have now is diabetes for something that our hardwired instincts are naturally craving. And in this information age, this want to be supplicative and feed into the female idea of equality is really a sexual diabetes that we have now. An instinct we had before, super useful, that saying what you have to say to get into a woman's pants, not working so well now. Now it just causes dry dick. Another thing to go on here is in the time before writing, when a man approached a woman for a sexual relationship, he would come with enough physical and social dominance to ward off other men who wanted her. Her natural response is also to submit to a male approaching her with cool confidence. It's both for her safety and because her own body recognizes him as a dominant, therefore attractive sexual partner. Again, there's a reason why approach anxiety is such a common strategy that we have to talk about. Not just us, pickup artists, like every guy who talks to guys about women approach anxiety seems to be that number one issue, because instinctively we just know that being able to walk up to a girl with enough confidence and bravado to kind of keep other guys from trying to come in and AMOG you, again, it all plays out exactly the same as it would be if we were a bunch of dudes in a tribe hucking spears at each other. It's the same thing here. The only difference is we've refined the process because we've become civilized. But yeah, now here's the part that is good for you to take off as a takeaway here. So she doesn't have to like him as a person to find her own body becoming aroused by a dominant man, as it's an inbuilt response. Being liked doesn't matter. It's good to have, but you don't need it. How many guys in the chat, when you were younger, before you were successful at all sexually, how often was it that you thought you had to be a friend with a girl in order to get anywhere with her? And how often did those girls end up sleeping with somebody that not only did they not like, but they used you to complain about? Again, this is the exact scenario here. That's because her body responded to his traits, his alpha traits, made her wet. They ended up smashing because she doesn't have to like somebody to find them attractive. I actually find it hard to believe that it's a difficult concept to explain to men, because you make a cranky, ornery woman with a great set of jugs on her walk by you, and the guy will be attracted to her. He may not like her at all. In fact, he may want to just hate smash her, but he'll find her attractive. So it's the same thing for girls. It just so happens that the things that you don't like about men, in other words, another guy's ability to dominate you either socially or physically, most guys don't like guys that can do that to them. And it just turns out that that thing you don't like is also the quality that she finds attractive. Something to think about. It's also why we have, and I don't like using alpha male as a demographic, but in here it kind of suits our purposes of explaining it. If you truly have, actually, let's just call it a self-actualized man. Let's go with the Robert Glover thing. If you're an actualized man, if you're top tier, if you know what you're doing, if you can attract women, when you run into another one of those guys, you can tell you've made it when you want to make a friend with him as opposed to being angry at him. I guess I'll have to call it alpha and beta male. An alpha male loves to run into other alpha males because there's so few of them around. You're like, oh, finally somebody I can go drinking with. Meanwhile, you put a weaker man in front of him, and he will usually find ways to dismiss him right off the bat. So the best way to tell if you got your act together is, how do you respond when top tier guys come into your presence? And honestly, I don't think it's something you can fake either, because guys just they just can't. So if you're at that place where you see a super attractive man come up to you when your girlfriend's beside you, and your first thought is to mate guard, well then that lets you know there's work you still need to do, whether or not it's effective. Sometimes maybe you are good enough. Maybe you are the hypergamous best option for your girl, and that big guy coming by, she doesn't even see him. But it's not about her. None of this is about her. Then we get into the information age. Before we get there, though, I have two more points I wanted to cover here. So a lot of guys love talking about genetics with all this stuff. Well, we're genetically predisposed to this. We're genetically predisposed to that. There's a reason I talk about sexual diabetes, and that's to hopefully articulate the idea that your instincts or your genetic predispositions are not only not a straitjacket to how you act, but in some cases they may not even be useful. So when people talk about leaving a genetic legacy, genetics this, genetics that, you aren't your genetics. Genetics plays a game with a timescale of eons. Our game, couple decades. So you may be a genetic dead end. I may be a genetic dead end. Stacy might be a genetic dead end. Who knows? But that you may not. But you're not going to be around to find out one way or another. Everybody's sexual strategy here is a very present day guess as to about what is the best way to survive and thrive. So don't trust anybody telling you what a real man does, because over a long enough time scale, the invisible hand of genetics will decide for us. All you can do is live a life to the best of your abilities based on the values you decide are best for you. Now, the one thing we can say is it's very Lindy to be self-interested. In fact, everybody who had social self-interest with just the right amount of altruism tended to survive over the eons. So that's our best guess. What worked in the past may work in the future. But again, no guarantees. So live your life on your own terms, because, again, you're not going to be around to suffer the consequences of you being a genetic dead end. You're not going to be around to suffer the consequences of anybody telling you how to live your life, and they won't be accountable for it anyway. So the information age. Interpersonal dominance by a man over a woman is deeply frowned upon, particularly in the workplace. And that's back before the time in writing. A man faced with a woman seeking dominance over him may simply have threatened or committed violence until she displayed submission. A male retail clerk cannot do this and get away with it. Thank God for that. We're civilized now. The consequence of such a thing would be extremely costly, so male employees typically perform the work requested of them by their bosses, male and female alike, without even considering violence. So with the information age, we can already see one example, that physical domination is not too useful. We're in a civilized, interconnected society right now, to the point where no one person is an island. Doesn't matter what you do. I don't care if you build log cabins. Right now, you're relying on the people that put the equipment together, or build your hand tools, or everything. So some amount of beta qualities are kind of essential right now. Like I said, the betas are the ones that built society the way we have, because betas are able to work together. And pure alpha qualities are extremely selfish, extremely self-interested, and they tend not to play well with others. So unless you get a group of sycophants around that kind of person who are willing to suck up to him as like a transferred sort of power, it's just not going to work. And that tribal idea just does not work in the modern age. That's why you end up with these third world dung heaps. You bring these guys to this world, oh my God, this man is so attractive, he's getting me so wet, but at the same time, yeah, build us a new iPhone. It's just not going to happen. The point is, though, that all these skills that women say they want really are valuable and do create comfort for the woman, but they generally create sexual attraction to the man that has them. Or they don't generally create it. So yeah, being able to work well with others, it's a great thing to do. It allows you to function as a job, allows you to build a business, allows you to have clients, does not get a girl wet. And in that way, it's kind of a cruel joke life has played on you, where your beta behaviors are kind of required to be successful in most areas. Unfortunately, it also makes you unsuccessful in your own happiness. So what a lot of guys have to do is they have to find where their balance lies. The more alpha qualities you portray, the more you lift, the more you look hot, the more you look attractive, the more aloof you are, the less you play well with others, the more dominant you are, the more physical you are, the more attractive girls tend to be. But it ultimately puts a ceiling on how successful you can be. And let's face it, we all don't want to live in a cardboard box. I'll put it this way. If you put all of your time and all those hunter and warrior traits to make you the alphaest alpha that ever alphaed, well, then you're going to have a long and fulfilling career loading trucks and doing prison time. At the same time, if you completely max out your beta provisioning behaviors, you're going to find yourself a wonderful plow horse. Everybody sitting by your bed waiting for you to die so they can carve out your inheritance. Ideally, neither of those situations are very good. So you have to find where you want it to be. Now, what we have found is that life is so safe right now. So safe, so easy, that we're kind of incentivizing people to lean more towards the alpha side. You can be more confrontational here, and there's not very many consequences. Great movie, by the way, if you want to watch it, that kind of goes over what happens when you get a little too far gone with the affluence. Zardoz. It's that one you see with Sean Connery wearing a banana hammock. Give it a shot one day. It'll be a hard one because it's like a 60s, 70s psychedelic thing, but it's a good movie. So next part here is alpha and beta traits. So we've come to the essential disconnect between what a woman is hardwired to be sexually attracted to and what she needs to create comfort in a modern relationship. I call these two differing skill sets alpha traits and beta traits. Now, if you learn nothing else from this series, and I know I keep saying that, but this time I swear I mean it. If you learn nothing else about this, learn about those alpha traits and beta traits. Compartmentalize them. Take a mental tally as to which one you're doing more than the other, and then compare that to the results you're seeing in your own life. And if they don't line up, well, that lets you know exactly the work you need to do to get the kind of sex life and the relationship that you're looking to get. Are you a guy, I can sleep with women all the time, it's perfect, it's no big deal, but I can't keep a girlfriend past a couple weeks? Probably going to find out you got a huge amount of alpha traits to you. Maybe you faked them, you're a PUA and you're just doing it for a couple hours at a time. Maybe you're just a thug and it happens naturally to you. You're going to find out you need to maybe add a few beta traits to your repertoire. That's how you settle down. That's how you make a family. At the same time, if you're beta Billy and no girl will touch you until she hits 30 and now she wants a family and she needs you to help her out, then yeah, upping your alpha traits makes a huge difference. The alpha traits do seem to very much align with the dopamine response in women. Alpha males are exciting, fun, intense, and engaging. Not only do they spark a woman's sexual interest, they spark her romantic interest as well. Meanwhile, the beta male traits are those needed for a modern relationship. These are often about the ability to be socially submissive, in a loose sense, a nice guy. The beta male traits are devoted to things that are good for raising children in the modern age, also like having a work ethic, building the nest, kindness, parenting skills, listening, holding a job, controlling anger and sexual energy, being artistic, verbal skills, creativity. The positive version is the man that provides for and supports his family. The negative version is the man that gives away all the relationship power to a woman and turns himself into a pussy-whipped servant. And that kind of sums it up. When you see guys sitting here talking about how great their job is, in fact, I can almost go down this list and pick any amount of trad connie type men out there. They're going to refer to all of these beta qualities as this is what makes a man. A real man is kind. A man is a good father. A man is good at listening. A man keeps a good job. A man controls his anger and his sexual energy. Does that sound a lot like that stupid semen retention thing that's coming up lately? Holding in your sexual energy. Muting, becoming a eunuch in some measure. Kind of makes you wonder, these guys are very sexually unsuccessful using this semen retention or no-fap in order to kind of get their qualities going off. It actually works completely the opposite of what they're trying to do. And this was written 2011, so it's not like this is just something new jumping on a bandwagon. We've been around for about a decade now. All right. So here's the funny thing. Something I was looking into here, and we're going to skip ahead. Now, I know most people here, they kind of want, can you give me a shopping list of all the alpha qualities and then a shopping list of all the beta qualities? I'm not going to do that. For the most part, you don't want an authority telling you about that because they're going to tell you ones that essentially line up with what they're doing. Like if you would have asked me what's alpha, I would have put creativity as an alpha skill because I'm a creative person. It's not true, but I would have done that. So you have to be very skeptical when people give you shopping lists of alpha and beta qualities. With very few exceptions. Physicality is the only one that people can admit is an alpha quality. Because that's the one thing you can't really hide from. It's the most honest representation of yourself you can give. So, putting that aside, we're going to go into the next part here, in the last part of this episode, the beta-ization of husbands. The failure to understand the need to have both of the skill sets of alpha and beta lies at the root of a wife declining romantic and sexual interest in her husband. For example, when a young woman meets a young man, he likely has much of his warrior or alpha mindset still in place and therefore creates a good deal of attraction in her. He isn't a thug, just somewhat mindlessly demanding and assertive with her. The first time he asked her out, he didn't really ask her, he just told her to meet him at a restaurant. She told him he was a pig for talking to her like that, but she went anyway. Plus, he had good physical health, he surfed competitively, and she loved watching him. So when he asked her to marry him, she excitedly agrees because she has a wonderful alpha profile here and she's in love with him. Sex is frequent and hot. Now he tells a story about after 5 to 10 years of marriage, the situation's quite different. The job he really needs to keep, so instead of just blow it off and go surfing, he's grinding it out at the office. There's a cliche that you often hear in the Married Red Pill. It's, I used to be alpha and slowly became beta. And after about the 50th and 60th time I heard it, I kind of started to understand. So, yeah, the things that initially attracted girls to husbands, they started having the, when I grow up, I need to put away the childish things. They throw out the baby with the bathwater. It turns out all of this stuff that may not have been helpful for them to build their little empire in the suburbs was the stuff that they kind of needed to keep the sex life going. And the more the girl told them that I need this, I need that, I need this, the more guys complimented her and went along with that plan, the more they involved themselves in their own self-sabotage. So the unwitting transaction from this, a mostly alpha profile to a mostly beta one, is very common for husbands. The trap for men is that all mainstream media advice on relationships, strongly encourages husbands to make this transition, and often his wife and family request the same as well. Furthermore, most things that are beta are actually useful and good. Helping out at home is good. Being an involved father is good. Holding a job is good. But frequently, the big picture gets lost in everything that needs to get done, and the man loses what attracts his wife along the way. The wife is, of course, completely unaware of her role in this decline, and is typically bewildered by her lack of interest in her husband. She never planned to neuter him, fall out of love with him, and detest his sexual advances. Most couples just assume that romantic feelings are short-term, and that a failing sex drive a few years into a marriage is completely normal. And I think that's the worst part of this. It's that everybody normalizes what is a very unnatural process. It's something that the information age has carved out, and maybe in the future, girls will find a great dopamine hit by guys that are really good in IT. But again, that's going to happen over a period of eons. We don't have eons. We have 8 decades, maybe 9 or 10 at the max at this time on Earth. So learn to play with the hand you've been dealt. And this is the part here where you run into the disingenuous arguments. People are going, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to get fired from my job and tell the girl to do all the chore play herself? Well, maybe, maybe not. Here's the thing though. There's tons of things you could do. Tons. And the first thing you think to do is to completely burn your life to the ground just in order to get some poon. It lets you know the guy's not thinking rationally. He's just trying to have an emotional knee-jerk reaction saying, how dare you tell me everything I'm doing doesn't get me exactly what I want, even though I'm not getting what I want right now, because I swear to God it is. People have a hard time. They have a hard time agreeing or coming to terms with they may have been succeeding in some areas in their life, but the trade-offs may not have been worth it. And that's all life is about trade-offs. If you want to be the alphaest Chad that ever chatted, then yeah, you're probably going to have a few ex-wives because you're not going to be very good at holding on to the relationship. At the same time, you may be able to hold on to a girl for 80 years, lifelong marriage, but she probably won't touch you for the next 40 because she just doesn't find you attractive. So where you want to carve out your ideal path there is truly up to you. I would argue, though, that chore play is a very easy one, and we'll use this as an example here, and then we'll let you go. I see a bunch of super chats. We'll get to you guys. I promise. Chore play. Girls are like, and it always comes at the end of this same line. You know, if you just did more chores around this place, maybe I'd be more comfortable and we'd have sex more often. That is so cliched. You know, some marketing team somewhere kind of got it into the public consciousness. So you have a few choices. If you're doing chore play, you can do the thing on her timeline and to her standard. You can do the thing to her timeline and your standard. You can do the thing to your timeline and her standard, or you can do the thing to your timeline and your standard. So if you do the thing to her timeline and her standard, nothing changes. Yeah, the dishes got done, but the sex life hasn't changed, so you've essentially just pussy whipped yourself for no reason, and she just gets to have a much easier life, more comfort. Completely self-sabotaging. Do the thing to your timeline and her standard, now you're a lazy teenager that has to nag constantly to get things done. Also not ideal. Do things to her timeline and to your standard, well, nothing you do is ever good enough. And I'm going to skip to something here in practical female psychology to show you why that's a bad idea. That nothing is ever good enough still makes you supplicative, but at this point you're doing more work and again, sabotaging yourself. So the only thing you can do then is do it on your timeline to your standard. And this is one of the pieces of advice we give to guys who are learning to stop beta-ization or beta-izing. I don't even know what that word would be. To stop sabotaging their own relationships. If you have the house that you want it to be on a certain standard, well, you do it to that standard and you do it on your timeline. And if she wants anything above and beyond that, well, her legs aren't broken. She can do it herself. She will get mad. She'll get angry, but just realize every manipulative trick that she has in her book, she's going to use against you, not even knowing it, to make you less attractive in her eyes. But she doesn't know she's doing it. So you can't even get mad at her for it. It's like the dog keeps peeing on your floor. Well, you got to learn to take him out for a walk every now and again. If you don't, he's going to continue peeing on your floor. And if you just let it happen, it's your own damn fault. So here was the funny thing. I did some looking up on this before. And he was talking about the beta-ization process where guys used to be alpha, slowly became beta. And I'm like, I wonder what year this came out, because it turns out a chapter in Practical Female Psychology for the Practical Man, another canon book from this space, talks about the beta-ization process. And I found out Franco's work came out in 2008, while Athol Kay's work came out in 2011. I find it very surprising for a guy who full-on admitted that mystery was a huge influence to this book, that he didn't know about this one when he wrote it. So it's a nice little supplement we're going to add here so you guys can understand the process a bit better. We'll go over it again when we hit practical female psychology in one of the next few. But it's the 5 stages of female manipulation, the beta-ization of men. First is testing the male, then seeking communication, then putting him to work, then evolutionary psychology or selfishness, and then self-determination. So the first stage is testing the male. Just gloss over it because it's not really applicable to this one. That's what you'd think of when you think of a shit test or a fitness test. All that socially dominant stuff we talked about. Do you walk up? Do you scare the other men away? Do you look like the warrior type? All those things that make her wet. She basically tests to see if these are real signals or fake signals. This is why girls are on the constant march to find harder and harder to fake signals that they find attractive. The second part is seeking communication. This is like when girls want guys to communicate more. That's what they mean. They're basically using that as a method to tame this alpha male that they get completely wet for, and now they want to secure him as best as possible. And getting this emotional connection, this pair bonding, is the best way women have for it. So just be aware, if your girl wants you to open up, that's what she's shooting for. And that by doing it, you're starting along a path of the de-attractiveness of your relationship. So just be aware. Obviously, you can't just be a tard and do absolutely nothing and, treat her like a one-night stand, because you're not going to have a good relationship. But opt into it only so far as you're willing to sacrifice your alpha qualities, your sexual desire, for comfort. Third stage is putting him to work. Now, this is the one that's important for what we just talked about, the beta-ization process. This is where, honey, take out the trash, wash the cat, do more dishes, maybe I'd be more comfortable, sleep with you more. This putting him to work, why else do women want to be attracted to a high-value man and get him to commit? It's because they want to get their use out of him. There's a reason Frank Frazetta paintings and all those Dungeons and Dragons things have such a resonant image of like the hot girl surrounded by a giant beast of burden. This is their payoff. This is the girl's money shot. Now, this is why the chore play thing, as an example of this alpha and beta dichotomy, is so important to pass these kind of tests, because the next stage is evolutionary selfishness. And this is where nothing you do is ever good enough. If that sounds familiar, it's like I said, when you start doing things on her timeline, but to your standard. Well, now nothing is ever good enough, and I'm never satisfied no matter what you do or how hard you try. And in her mind, this is a way of removing her hypergamous instincts from you. You can't be her best option now because nothing you do is ever good enough. Now, they're just hardwired to this. But the only way they get here is when they have all the other steps in place. It's after they find you super attractive. It's after you've committed to her fully. It's after she's put you to work and you're basically running through life like a good plow horse. That's when this stuff starts sneaking in. And for most guys, this is the part where they find the red pill, this evolutionary selfishness. She doesn't sleep with you. She's constantly nagging. She's looking at other dudes. Everything you do is wrong. You're a bad guy. She's a victim. That sort of thing. And then the easiest pathway out of that, and I don't mean easy as in it's easy, I mean easy as in easier than the alternatives, is going back. All right, flip this chessboard. This game's not working. We're losing it. No more putting me to work. I'm doing things on my standard and on my timeline. I'm putting myself to work. You get to enjoy the benefits. If you want more, do it. And then, again, moving back, communicate less. Communicate less. Build up your more alpha qualities. You're essentially regressing in this beta-ization process. And that's an awesome way to think about it because, again, the last step, self-determination. I am a full-grown, independent woman now. You're evil. She's a victim. She's going out on a girl's night out, and you just are too controlling and you need to trust her more until she switches you up for a younger model. Or in her case, sometimes a no model. Girls aren't exactly perfectly successful with this. And there's a good chance that you may be her best option. But she's convinced herself that she's not. And she's going to go out and she's going to try out a better man and she's going to leave you. And then she's going to find out that guy didn't want to commit anyway. And so she's going to tell you it was a mistake and to give things another try. You can go through all this if you want to. I would say it's much better off if you just don't do the damn dishes. You know what I mean? So that should help you guys understand the process of what we're talking about here. So that's it for this episode of Married Man Sex Life Primer. The next one will be up tomorrow. Again, Hit 10,000. I'm working right now on 2 new videos, a new vlog, as well as the 10,000 subscriber special. Let's take some time now to get with these super chats. Apex Mindset, thank you. $5 super chat. I love this episode. What's your opinion on using compliments when opening? I won't advocate it, but it's not necessarily wrong. Wondering your take. I treat compliments the same way that I treat dates. I think they are a reward for good behavior. I do not think that they're an interview for sexual relationships in any form. Why would I give a girl a compliment? I don't know her. I don't know you. The only thing I could possibly comment on is your physical appearance or very surface level stuff. And she already knows that. And she's probably heard that. So what good is it of me telling somebody something they already know? Hey man, nice red shirt. Thanks. It is a nice red shirt. That's why I bought it and I'm wearing it. That doesn't sound too good to me. So for me, I always approach these kind of things with a what's in it for me. What has this person done to add value to my life to the point where I would want to give them some sort of validation in the form of a compliment? And when opening, I would say too, if you're doing it when opening, the only worst thing I can see in an opening would be an apology, which is ridiculous. If you guys go back, I did a video on a former pickup artist plays Super Seducer, and I just got mad. I rage quit that game. I've never rage quit a game in my life. I rage quit Super Seducer, and I'm not too proud to admit it. But walks up to a girl, the first thing he does is apologize. And I'm like, what in the hell is he teaching these young guys in this game? Apologies? Like, picture yourself in medieval times or Paleolithic times. You're a hunter, you're a gatherer. You walk up, grog, sorry, but wondering if you want to smash. She'd be like, no, I don't want to smash. I'm going to have that guy that's walking up to me like he's going to club me over the head with that thing if I don't treat him nicely. It's completely counterintuitive, and I hate guys who think so little of their own self-worth that they either apologize or they think they need to lead with like a gift in their hand, but it's such a low gift. It's again, what do they call it? The female innate skepticism bias. That's from David Buss and Cindy Minson. Girls are automatically distrustful of low investment signals of attraction, and a compliment, you don't get much lower investment than that. Hi, pretty eyes. You seem nice. That costs you nothing. So naturally, a girl's going to assume it's a lie. Even ones that are self-conscious and really could use the compliment, they'll still treat it as a lie. I can't remember who did it too. It was like Delicious Tacos or something. I had a tweet yesterday where he was talking about, or maybe it was Patrice O'Neal. It might have been a Patrice O'Neal bit where he was talking about, yeah, going out, and he saw this, overweight girl, and he's like, I feel kind of bad about her. Gives her a compliment, tells her a nice day. She basically blows him off. That's exactly why. Innate skepticism bias. If you want to brighten up a girl's day, put some investment into your signal. For those of you who are thinking, well, I don't want to invest it. Well, that's good. That means self-worth. You shouldn't be investing in things you don't like anyway. So hopefully that answers your question on that one. If you want some follow-up, next one's from Ian Williams. Yo, bro, have you checked out my book, Empathalia? Yeah, I think I see it on there, but I haven't read it yet. I think I put a sample on my book. Like I said, my schedule is super busy, and I've got so many things I've already promised to look into. So like I said, I'll try, but yeah, patience. Anyways, on that note, unless there's any other super chats, I think we're good. We're going to call this one an episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the next one. Don't forget, like if you like this, subscribe if you like it. I see 136 concurrent failures, 60 likes right now. That means either I'm not doing a good enough job for half of you, or half of you guys forgot to hit the like button. So please do one way or the other, and I'll catch you on the next episode. I actually set this thing up now, so it's 22 seconds. So we actually have our end cards now. One of you guys in the chat, I apologize. I've seen you across the street and I thought you looked cute. What's up? Yeah, why not just say what's up? Why do you have to justify it? You saw her. She's cute. I'm going across the street. Gonna say hi. Good enough. Anyways, guys, cheers.